Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Carmen Castro, and today we have Misty Hinote joining us. Misty is with the Texas Department of Insurance, where she is part of the Consumer Protection Unit. Misty, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, as you can imagine, the road to recovery is long and complex. Thankfully, your team ensures that the fair treatment of all consumers. So please, let's start.
Great. Well, first I want to tell you what the Texas Department of Insurance is. We're the state agency that regulates the insurance industry in Texas, and that means that agents and companies have to have our license to legally sell insurance. But that also means that we can help you with any insurance questions, concerns, and complaints. And there's three major ways that we can do that at TDI. One of them is through our consumer publications and our website. So we have about 40 publications on our website to walk you through different types of insurance. So auto, home, health, commercial property, all different types of insurance to tell you kind of how the coverages work, some shopping tips when you're buying insurance.
Right. So there are so many types of policies. How does a survivor break it down piece by piece trying to decipher so many documents?
Yes, we know that the insurance policy, it's a legal document, so it's just naturally complicated. So at TDI, one of our missions is to provide information. So we do in our consumer publications, we'll tell you, so for example, homeowners insurance, our homeowners insurance brochure, we'll tell you the different types of coverages. There's some main types of coverages, there's some optional coverages, some things that you can buy if you have certain circumstances. We'll also give you some shopping tips. So when you're looking through your insurance policy, you might not understand everything in it, but at least if you understand the highlights, if you understand maybe some factors that affect your premium, just understand how the policy works. That's how we want to help. So you can get that through our brochure and also by calling our 1-800 number, our consumer helpline.
Okay. So walk us a little through the types of policies that might cover damage from Harvey.
Okay. So there are four major categories. The first category is going to be your homeowner's insurance. That also could include renter's insurance, condo insurance. So homeowner's insurance, you're probably somewhat familiar with that. Your homeowner's policy will cover things like fire, tornado, theft, some water damage. But your homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover wind if you live along the 14 coastal counties and parts of Harris County. We'll talk about those policies later. And it's not going to cover flood. We'll talk about that too. So homeowner's policy, I guess with Harvey, if you had the homeowner's policy with Harvey and you had something like a tornado, you had a fire, you had a theft in your house, then you might file a claim with your homeowner's insurance after Harvey. The second type of insurance I briefly mentioned is the wind policy. So if you live along the coast, wind is going to be excluded in your homeowner's policy. So you'll have to buy a special wind policy through the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. We call it TWIA. So it'll be a separate policy next to your homeowner's policy, and that'll cover your wind and your hail. If you live inland, like here in Austin, then you might not have to have that policy. And then there's a third policy, the flood policy. I mentioned that one as well. That one isn't regulated by the state. You get that one through the federal government, and that one's called the National Flood Insurance Program, so NFIP, we call it for short, and that one's actually sold through FEMA. So you could have your homeowner's policy, you could have your wind policy, you could have your flood policy, 3 separate policies.
Okay. So it gets a little complicated when you're dealing with the mortgage of your house. What is the claims process in that situation?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different if you have a mortgage on your house. So the major thing that's different is when you get the check from your company, they're going to send you your settlement amount on a check. It's going to be made out to you and your mortgage company. So you can't just go cash it and start making repairs right away like if you would if you didn't have a mortgage company. You're going to get that check, you're going to send it in the mail to your mortgage company, they're going to have to sign it, and then they're going to send it back to you, and then you can start making the repairs.
Is there an approximate timeline of how that takes?
Well, technically, so when you send the check to the mortgage company, they have 10 days to tell you if they need any other documentation or if there's any other requirements on them to sign that check. After those 10 days, if there's anything they need from you, after you send it in, they have another 10 days to release those funds to you. So there's those 2 requirements.
Okay. And as far as you mentioned some of the big things with our residents along the coastal counties, can you talk a little bit more about what the TWIA policyholders might be having to deal with right now?
Yeah, for sure. So TWIA, it is regulated by the state, so it's still an insurance product, but it is its own separate policy. So there are some things that are different about the TWIA policy. And the TWIA policy, like I said, it's going to be a separate policy. It goes through the Windstorm Association. But we have an ombudsman at TDI that would really like to help you if you have any questions, concerns, complaints about that TWIA policy. So our ombudsman works at TDI, but he helps with the TWIA complaints and concerns. There's different timelines for TWIA claims processes. And when we get into the appraisal process, when we talk about that, the appraisal process is a little bit different for TWIA. But definitely come to us if you have questions about that. We know it's complicated, so we want to help you through that process.
Okay. Thank you. Those are great tips. And also, another big frustration with our survivors out there is the fact that they feel that the payment that they're getting from their insurance company isn't enough. So what tips do you have for people in that situation?
Yeah, I think the main tip first is to call your insurance company and find out. Insurance companies are really responsive. Get on the phone with your adjuster, with your agent, have your settlement amount with you, have your documentation, and say, okay, this is the settlement amount you offered, but I think this is fair. Maybe there's some other damages that you didn't discover, that the adjuster didn't see. When they took off the walls, there might be some other damage. When they started repairing the roof, there might be other damage. So go to your insurance company, say, we discovered this other damage, the contractor came in, he discovered this other damage. Can you, help me out? And they're very responsive. They'll give you, most likely, in a lot of cases, they'll give you a supplemental check to help pay for that. Another reason that might happen, that the amount you get from the company isn't enough to cover repairs, is that material costs are so high. After storms, as you imagine, when you go to Home Depot and Lowe's, you probably see that material costs are just probably through the roof. For one reason or another, that happens. And insurance companies understand this. So you can go to your insurance company with your contractor's estimate and say, this is what you offered, this is what the contractor says it's going to cost to repair my house. What can you do? And again, companies are responsive and they are often willing to give a supplemental check. So that's the main tip, I think, is to go to your company. Try to work it out with your company. Another main reason to understand that repairs might be expensive is because you have a deductible. I was down in Corpus Christi and a lot of people said, my company's denying my claim. It's not technically true, it's because the deductible's high. And we just want people to understand that. So for example, if you have a $200,000 house, you have a 1% deductible, that means that the first $2,000 out of pocket, if you have a 1% deductible, is something that you're going to have to pay before the insurance company starts to pay. So if you have, say, a fence, for example, that's down, it's going to cost $1,500 to repair the fence. Well, you're going to have to pay that first $2,000, the first $1,500 of the repair before the company will pay. So just understand when you're buying a policy from your company that the premium might be lower, but it's because you have a higher deductible. So just know those things when it comes time to file a claim.
Okay. And speaking of money, when you go to your website, you see that all the auto, homeowners, and windstorm policies have an appraisal process that's mentioned. How does that work?
Yeah, so the appraisal process. I'm going to go back to this several times, but the first thing we tell people before you have to go through the appraisal process, because it can be expensive. We don't want you to have to incur extra expense if you don't have to. So the first thing we're going to tell you before you do that is go to your company. Call your company, see if you can get things worked out before you have to go to appraisal. But if you do have to go through appraisal, if you're still not happy with the money that the company is offering you, if you're not happy with that settlement amount, there is an appraisal process. So for homeowners and auto insurance, it's going to work that you hire an appraisal, the company hires an appraiser, and they're going to see what amounts they think is fair. If their amounts are different, they're going to hire a third party called an umpire, and whatever that umpire decides is going to be binding. It's going to be the final decision. So if the umpire says this is the settlement amount we think is fair, then that's what's going to be fair. But you're going to have to pay for your appraisal and half the cost of the umpire. So there is a cost out of your pocket to go through the appraisal process. So that's why we say try to work it out before you get there so you don't have to incur more costs. We know, there's tons of costs that you're incurring right now. So if there's any way we can spare you that, try to work with the company first. But there is that appraisal process, and that's for home and auto. For TWIA, the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association, your wind and hail policy, that's a little bit different. And we want you to keep in mind there's a deadline for the TWIA. So you have 120 days from when the company accepted your claim to file for appraisal. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that ticking clock, that you have 120 days to file your appraisal if you think you need to. But in those 120 days, keep working with your insurance company, keep calling, keep asking for an adjuster to come out, keep providing documentation. You can still do all that while your 120 days is ticking, but just keep in mind there's that deadline to file with TWIA. So we don't want you to miss that if you really need to go through the appraisal process.
Great. Also on the website, it's great to see you guys do have Spanish resources available. What else is on the website that can help directly with any matters related to Harvey recovery?
Yeah, so we have a great Help After Harvey website, and it's on our main website, tdi.texas.gov, and there are tons of great resources. I think one of the most valuable is our Take Fives. So these are supposed to be little snippets of information that you can get in 5 minutes. So one of them is about the appraisal process, just some quick and easy pointers in 5 minutes so you can understand. There's also filing a claim. So many people have never filed a homeowner's insurance claim. You get the homeowner's insurance, and most people have never filed a claim on their policy. So it kind of walks you through the claim process. This is how it works. These are the deadlines for filing a claim. These are the days it's going to take, things like that. So we try to make things understandable, digestible. We know you have a lot going on in your lives, and last thing you want to think about is the complicated insurance process. So we want to do our part to make it understandable for you. So check out our Help After Harvey page for sure.
Right. We've also noticed on there you guys have been promoting things like beware, buyer beware when it comes to purchasing any flood damaged vehicles, matters as related to workers' comp claims that may have resulted as Harvey. So it's just a reminder to our survivors that you guys are all things involved with insurance.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of things you don't think about. One of the things, like you were talking about the flooded cars, a lot of people don't realize that your auto insurance will cover a flooded car if you have that comprehensive coverage. So people might not think about that. They might think, oh, I don't have a flood policy on my house. My car's flooded, I'm not going to get any help. Well, in actuality, if you have comprehensive coverage on your car insurance, then it will cover your flooded car. So there's a lot of things, like you said, workers' comp, a lot of things you might not think about. So if you go to our website, that kind of really jogs your memory, makes you think, oh yeah, maybe I have an interest in that topic.
So it really seems survivors need to remember to realize that every case is different, and you just have to make sure to ask all the questions. Know that places like the Texas Department of Insurance are here to help you. It just takes a lot of patience. And of course, just to remind people, some people aren't very tech savvy. They don't want to get on the website. You guys do have a helpline to call. And again, you also offer the Spanish representatives. But remind us again, what is that number and what are your hours?
Great. Yeah, our consumer helplines have some very knowledgeable insurance specialists. Get them on the call, ask them any questions about insurance. We're open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, and our number is 1-800-252-3439. And you're right, there are Spanish speakers. We're willing to help you however we can. We want to get you back on your feet as quickly as we can, and anything we can do, any part we can take in helping with that, we would be glad to do.
Well, Misty, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Everyone else out there, know we're here with you the whole way through on this recovery. Join us again next week for our weekly sessions at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you, and see you then.
All right, thanks.